can see here example what I have explained here. So last class also I have spoke about this, right? So you can see here like whenever you want to give the reference tag, right, hyper reference href, okay, hyper reference. So whenever you are using the what you are using here, that is the element name. So that is the what you are going to use. So I'm going to use a, that is a anchored element tag. Okay, so this is the tag. Okay, so first A is element tag. So element name is A you are using, that is the anchor. Then href is equal to the domain name you are giving, right? So this all will be considered as your attribute, and this entire from here to till here, that means it is called as your opening tag. So you are writing in the opening tag the element name and you are giving an attribute. So whatever the attribute, either it's a for image, if it's there, it will be src. So it depends on the content, right? It depends on the tag, and then you are going to use some content. So whatever the content you are going to put, that content should be between the, that is the opening and closing tag. So I'm using the content here. So content can be anything, and at last you are going to use the closing tag. So I have used here closing tag. So this is your, so HTML, and that is the HTML documents are composed of your textual content and HTML element. So what we have spoke now, okay. Then we have said that HTML element encompasses, so it has added some other elements also. So what are the elements you can have? So you can use the element name within angle bracket with the tag, that is the what you are using here. And further more tags are there, more elements are there, which we will be seeing further. Okay, so that you have to use it. So we'll see the tags, just you remember now. Okay, so there are several varieties of attribute you will be adding into your each element. So HTML element can also have the attribute, which here attribute we have added as a href. You will be having, when you are using image, you will be using height, width. So those attribute can be also added, and the content within the tag what we have used. So that's what we have talked about, the your HTML syntax with your elements and attribute here. The next similar way, next we have about the image tag. You can see here, just now I have explained you the example for empty element, or you can say this is also as a standalone tag. Okay, so you can see here when you are going to use for image tag, the element name is here img. You are using the source, that is the as place of hyperreference you are using source, because which directory your image is there. And here you can see that I have used here another attribute, that is your alt tag. Alt is nothing, it's alternative. That means in case might be you have seen on the website, when you open some website, if image is not loading, some textual representation will be, some name will be appear. So why that name appeared? That means either the image has been deleted or it is not loaded completely. So what will happen, at that place alternative, the text information will display. So that is your, that's why we are using alt tag here. If you want to define height and width, you can define, but this will take your default height and width of your image. And at last you can see that we are using a forward slash, that is the for closing tag. So this is your trailing slash, that means either you can give this slash or not, it's not a matter. Even if you not give, if you are not adding this slash symbol, also your program, whatever you're writing in on web for the image, it will run. If you use also, it is not going to affect your coding. Okay, so you can use or cannot also, it's up to your choice. So that's what we talked about HTML empty element, right? So as I said, right, empty elements will not having any closing tag. So an empty elements does not contain any text content. You can see that we are not using any text content, right? Instead, it is an instruction to the browser to do something. So the empty elements is giving some instruction. What is the instruction? That it should load this image. So we are not giving any information here. It's taking the information from here only. So these are the empty element. So in XHTML, empty elements had to be terminated by a trailing slash. So when you develop the web application on based of XHTML, then you have to use. If you are not using the XHTML, then it's not required. Okay. Next, in HTML5, the trailing slash in empty element is optional. So as I mentioned, right, if you not use also, that it will work. So as per the today technology. Okay, so in HTML5, either you can use, either you cannot. So, but it will, your program will run, and any error, obviously this will not give you any error, no like compilation error or anything, something like that, it will be there. So whatever you display, it will reflect you the result. Any questions so far? Any questions so far? Anyone can unmute and just say yes or no. Guys, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Any question?
No, sir.
Okay, so we'll proceed now. If you have a question, for everyone I'm telling you, if you have question, you can, the moment I ask, if you have doubt, you can please unmute and ask the question. Okay, so next is something nesting HTML element. So how you can use the nesting HTML element? Okay, so here is the example. You can see the example. Okay, so what we have used here, you can see here, right? So in HTML, you can add multiple nesting element, HTML elements, whatever you want. So you can see here what I have done here. There is something called as heading tag. Okay, so in heading tag, there are, sorry. Okay, so there is something called as heading tag. Okay, so your heading tag is like something, there are 6 types of heading tag, that is H1, then H2. Okay, similar way you will be having H3, you have H4, you have H5, and you have H6. Okay, so these are 6 heading tag you have. So you can see here, even in PPT, I am using the HTML syntax is highlighted, right? It's a bigger font, right? And a nesting HTML element, it is the smaller. So when you want this way in your HTML document, then you can use the heading tag. So H1 is the largest and H6 is the smallest element. Okay, so you can see here what I have done here in this syntax, I am using H1. Okay, so when you use H1, that means share your, what you are going to share? Travels. And in between I have used here something element called as strong. And here after that travels, that is the content, what I have used here, again after the content we have the closing tag. So this is for opening and closing for this. Okay, and for this opening and closing, it is here. Okay, so this is the, you can add the elements, any element, but should be proper way. You can see that the strong, what we are adding, so when you want the bold letter, you are going to even use a strong. So this strong is opened and closed here between the content, and H1 is even starting, it has opened and it has closed at the end. So this is the correct nesting. People, how they do mistakes. Okay, so let's, so what you will do, you will, the same thing you will follow. Okay, somebody, what they will write, they will use the H1. Okay, share your, okay, strong. So they will think that, okay, I have used H1, so I should close the H1. So this is actually wrong. You should not. Whichever internal element you are using, you can see here, whichever, whatever you are using, even if you are using a paragraph inside H1, the first, that element need to be closed. Okay, so that is the first, this element need to be closed. Okay, and then after your the starting element need to be closed. But what we have done here, we have just closed the tag H1 before closing this strong. Okay, so that means this is not correct nesting, it is incorrect nesting elements. So you cannot do this one. You can see here. If you do this one, you will get the wrong result. Result will come, but it will the way you want the result, that will not appear. So that's what I said you, that in this element, you can see here, whenever you are using this element, so you are using the strong here, that the content is between that and then you are closing. Then after H1 opening and H1 is closing here. So between this is going to open and close. So this will be correct syntax for nesting the element. So same way, if you want, you will see that H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, H6. There are 6 heading tags, you can use it. Next, when we talk about the very simple, the other nesting, okay. So how the other nesting will be working, right? So you can see here any HTML, okay. So it will always, there are certain also HTML head, I have taught you in previous class, you required HTML head, title, then it will start with the body tag, okay. So when we talk about the starting, so any document, any output, whatever you are seeing on the browser, this all the information is always between the body section. Only those information is only going to be visible to users. So whenever you start body section, that is your parent here, right? So this is the main start. Now what you are doing, you are using a paragraph, right? So P indicates here paragraph. So what I am doing in paragraph, I am writing something. This is some text, but what I want text to be highlighted. That means a strong letter, bold letter. So when you want bold letter, that means you are going to use strong, okay, and you are closing. And last, you can see that the paragraph I'm closing here. It's not like you can write the next line also, that is not a problem, but the moment this get opened, this should be closed also. The same way you can see that again I have used another H1, so you can see that H1 is there. If you want another division, div tag, it is called the division, okay. So when you want division tag, again you have to use div. Inside I am using paragraph, I am using a span element, okay. Again we are closing paragraph, closing the division tag, and closing finally our body tag. So this way you can write the complete structure of your, with help of your nesting, okay. So I'll just show you one example, then you will get to know this.